The alarm bells screamed through the command center of the UES horizon as Admiral Kim rushed to his chair. The massive screens around the bridge flickered with incoming messages from the outer colonies, each one more desperate than the last. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from New Geneva Colony," Lieutenant Park called out, her voice shaking. "They're under attack by unknown vessels." Kim grabbed the armrest of his command chair as the ship shuddered. Around him, his crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding across human space. The horizon was 3 days away from the nearest colony, too far to help anyone. "Put the transmission on screen," Kim ordered. The main display showed a terrified man in civilian clothes standing in what looked like a mining facility. Behind him, explosions lit up the sky through broken windows. His voice crackled through the static. "This is Director Yang from New Geneva Mining Station. We are under attack by alien ships. They appeared without warning and started firing on our settlements. They're not targeting our defenses. They're hitting schools, hospitals, residential areas. Please, someone help us." The transmission cut to static. Kim felt his stomach drop as more reports flooded in from across the colony worlds. Kepler Station, Armstrong Settlement, New Tokyo Outpost. All under attack by the same unknown enemy. "Who are they?" asked Commander Choi, the ship's second officer. "We've never seen ships like those before." On the tactical display, the attacking vessels looked unlike anything in human databases. They were crystalline, almost beautiful, but their weapons were devastating every human settlement they encountered. The ships moved with perfect coordination, hitting multiple targets simultaneously across dozens of light years. "Sir, incoming. Transmission from the attacking force," reported Ensign Lee at the communication station. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Kim said, dreading what he was about to hear. The screen filled with the image of an alien unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Its face was angular and sharp, made of what looked like living crystal. Multiple eyes reflected light like diamonds, and when it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "Primitive humans," the alien said. "I am War Commander Vex of the Zephyrian Confederation. For 10,000 years we have ruled this section of the galaxy. Your pathetic expansion into our territory ends today." Kim watched in horror as the alien gestured to something off-screen. The display split to show multiple human colonies burning. Children were running through streets as buildings collapsed around them. Emergency services tried desperately to evacuate civilians as the crystal ships rained destruction from above. "These settlements were built on worlds that belong to us," Vex continued. "You insects thought you could simply take what you pleased. Now you will learn the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." The images of destruction continued to play. Kim saw families huddled in shelters that were torn apart by alien weapons. He saw rescue ships trying to evacuate civilians, only to be shot down as they lifted off. This wasn't warfare. It was murder. "You have 72 hours to remove all human presence from beyond your home system," Vex announced. "Every ship, every station, every settlement must be abandoned. If even one human remains in our territory after that time, we will visit the same fate upon every world you call home." The transmission switched to show Earth itself, somehow viewed from space despite being hundreds of light years away. The message was clear. The Zephyrians had the technology to reach anywhere in human space. "We are ancient, we are powerful, and we are without mercy," Vex said. "This is your only warning." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Around them, damage reports continued to stream in. 3.2 million civilians dead in the first attack. Entire settlements wiped out. Orbital stations destroyed. It was the worst disaster in human history. "Sir," Park said quietly, "we're receiving surrender offers from some of the outer colonies. They're afraid the Zephyrians will come back." Kim stood up slowly, his mind racing. He had served in the Human Defense Fleet for 30 years, but they had never faced anything like this. The Zephyrians weren't interested in negotiation or territorial disputes. They wanted complete human withdrawal from a quarter of known space. "Contact, Earth Command," Kim ordered. "Priority Alpha transmission. Tell them the Zephyrians have declared war on humanity. What should we tell the colonies, sir? Choi asked. Some are requesting immediate evacuation. Kim looked at the tactical display showing the positions of human settlements across the galaxy. Millions of people lived on those worlds. Families, children, elderly people who had spent their entire lives building new homes among the stars. The Zephyrians expected humans to simply abandon everything and run. Tell them to hold their positions, Kim said finally. Tell them help is coming. Sir? Park looked confused. We don't have the military strength to fight an empire that's existed for 10,000 years. Kim turned to face his crew. Their faces showed the same fear and uncertainty he felt, but also something else. Determination. Humans had faced extinction before and survived. They had overcome impossible odds through ingenuity, cooperation, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. The Zephyrians made one critical mistake, Kim said. They think we're like the other species in this galaxy. They think we'll respond with honor duels and formal declarations of war. They have no idea what human warfare actually looks like. He pressed the communication button that would connect him to every human ship and station in the galaxy. This is Admiral Kim to all human forces. The Zephyrians have murdered our civilians and threatened our worlds. They want us to run away and hide. But we don't run from bullies, and we don't abandon our people. Prepare for war. 6 months had passed. Since the Zephyrian attack, and Earth looked like a completely different world. General Lee stood in the command center deep beneath the Martian surface, watching dozens of screens that showed the most incredible transformation in human history. Production report, Lee called out as Colonel Choi approached with a thick data pad. Sir, every civilian factory on Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt has been converted to military production. We're building 2 destroyers every single day. The big shipyards are finishing a battleship every week. Choi reported, his voice filled with amazement. The numbers are beyond anything we've ever achieved before. Lee nodded as he watched the live feeds from the construction yards. Massive robotic arms worked without stopping, assembling hull plates and weapon systems. Streams of workers moved between the ships, installing equipment that had been designed just days earlier. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. What about Dr. Han's research teams? Lee asked. They've been working around the clock, sir. They've created weapons the galaxy has never seen before. Kinetic bombardment systems that can destroy entire cities with simple metal rods. Electronic warfare packages that can blind and paralyze enemy ships. Shield-piercing technology that cuts through any known defense. Lee walked over to a massive display showing human space. Red dots marked the locations where Zephyrian forces were positioned, waiting for humanity's response. They had been surprisingly quiet since their initial attack, probably expecting humans to surrender or beg for mercy like other species had done in the past. Any word from the Galactic Council? Lee asked. Choi's expression darkened. They've offered their thoughts and prayers, sir. The Altarian ambassador sent a formal letter of concern. The Vegan Trade Federation suggested we try diplomatic negotiations, but no one is offering actual help. Lee wasn't surprised. The other species in the galaxy were ancient and set in their ways. They fought wars according to old traditions, formal challenges, honor duels, battles that lasted for decades without clear winners. They had no concept of total war or complete victory. Show me the training facilities, Lee ordered. The screen switched to show secret bases scattered across the solar system. In underground chambers on Europa, soldiers practiced fighting in zero gravity. On the dark side of the moon, pilots learned to fly ships that moved faster and hit harder than anything the galaxy had seen. In the asteroid belt, Marines trained for boarding actions against crystalline vessels. The Zephyrians are in for a surprise, Colonel Park said as she joined them. They think they're fighting humans the way we fought each other centuries ago. They don't understand that we've spent our entire history learning how to end wars quickly and completely. Lee pulled up intelligence reports from deep space monitoring stations. What are the Zephyrians doing in their territory? Standard patrol patterns, sir. Their fleets are positioned defensively around their major worlds. They seem confident that their original ultimatum was enough to scare us into submission, Choi answered. They're about to learn otherwise, Lee said grimly. On the screens around them, The evidence of human preparation was overwhelming. Factory. Worlds that had once produced consumer goods now manufactured ammunition and armor. Research stations that had studied peaceful technologies now focused entirely on weapons development. Even civilian transport ships were being fitted with military equipment. The transformation went beyond just military hardware. Every human settlement had organized itself for war. Children too young to fight were moved to the safest locations. Adults who couldn't serve in combat worked in the factories. Scientists who had studied medicine now studied better ways to disable enemy ships without killing their crews. Not out of mercy, but because disabled ships couldn't fight back. Status on Operation Silence? Lee asked. Admiral Kim's fleet is ready to deploy, sir. The Retribution and 12 escort ships are loaded with our newest weapons. Intelligence indicates the Zephyrian stronghold at Keth Prime is their most important military base, Park reported. Lee studied the tactical projections. Keth Prime was heavily defended according to galactic standards. Energy shields, defensive, satellites, and a fleet of crystal ships. But those defenses were designed to stop the kind of warfare other alien species used. They weren't prepared for human tactics. The Zephyrians made a critical error when they attacked our civilians, Lee said to his assembled staff. They assumed we would respond like other species, with formal protests, demands for apologies, maybe some limited military action after months of diplomatic talks. He gestured to the production reports showing millions of tons of military equipment being manufactured every day. Instead, they've awakened something they don't understand. Humans don't fight wars to prove how brave we are or to gain honor for our leaders. We fight wars to win them as quickly and completely as possible. We fight wars to make sure they never happen again. A communication officer approached with an urgent message. Sir, Admiral Kim reports his fleet is ready for departure. He's requesting permission to begin Operation Silence. Lee looked one more time at the displays showing human military production. In 6 months, humanity had built the largest war machine in its history. The Zephyrians had given them an ultimatum, expecting surrender. Instead, they had given humanity the motivation to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Signal. Admiral Kim, Lee ordered. Tell him Operation Silence is authorized. Tell him it's time to show the Zephyrians what human warfare looks like. And remind him, we didn't start this war, but we're going to end it. The age of human mercy was over. The age of human victory was about to begin. The Zephyrian defense fleet around Keth Prime had been arranged in the traditional formation used by galactic civilizations for thousands of years. Massive crystalline ships formed elegant lines. Their weapons pointed outward toward the edges of the system where any attacker would naturally appear. War Commander Thek stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that no force in the galaxy could break through their defenses. What emerged from hyperspace at the edge of their system defied every expectation. Admiral Kim's human fleet didn't announce its arrival with dramatic speeches or challenges to single combat. The UES Retribution and its escort ships simply materialized out of nothing, spread across multiple points around the system, and immediately began their attack without any warning or ceremony. What are they doing? Thex demanded as his tactical officer stared at the displays in confusion. Why haven't they hailed us? Where are their battle formations? The human ships moved unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Instead of forming up for a traditional fleet engagement, they scattered in all directions, each ship taking a different approach vector toward the planet. Electronic warfare package deployed, Commander Yoon reported from the tactical station aboard the Retribution. Enemy communications are completely jammed. Their sensors can't see us clearly, and their weapon targeting systems are offline. On Y. The main screen, Kim watched with satisfaction as the Zephyrian ships began drifting helplessly. Sparks flew from their crystalline hulls as human electronic warfare systems overwhelmed their technology. Ships that had been in perfect formation moments before now spun slowly out of control, their crews unable to coordinate any response. This is impossible, Thex muttered as his ship's systems failed one by one. How are they doing this? We are the masters of space warfare, but the humans weren't finished. While the Zephyrian fleet struggled with their disabled systems, Lieutenant CO at the weapons station prepared the next phase of the attack. Kinetic bombardment systems ready, sir. All military targets on the planet's surface have been identified and locked, CO reported. Kim studied the tactical display showing Keth Prime below them. The planet's surface was covered with military bases, weapon factories, and training facilities. For 10,000 years, the Zephyrians had built their war machine here, confident that no enemy could ever reach their homeworld. Fire, Kim ordered, quietly. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for generations. Tungsten rods, each one perfectly shaped and accelerated to incredible speeds, fell from orbit toward the planet's surface. There were no explosions, no dramatic fireballs that would have warned the defenders. Just precise, devastating impacts that turned massive military installations into perfectly circular craters of molten metal. The Zephyrian ground control centers went silent one by one. Their orbital defense platforms crumpled like paper as the kinetic projectiles tore through them. In less than an hour, 10,000 years of military construction had been reduced to smoking ruins. Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet, Kim commanded. Thex's face appeared on the screen, his crystalline features twisted with rage and confusion. Behind him, his bridge was filled with sparking equipment and emergency lighting. This is not warfare, Thex shouted. This is butchery. Where is the honor in attacking without warning? Where is the glory in using weapons that give us no chance to fight back? Kim's expression remained completely calm as he responded. You murdered 3 million human civilians without warning. You destroyed hospitals, schools, and homes. You gave us 72 hours to abandon everything we had built. Did you offer our children a chance to fight back? The Zephyrian commander fell silent, his multiple eyes reflecting the emergency lights of his damaged bridge. This is what human warfare looks like, Kim continued. We don't fight for honor or glory. We don't test our strength against worthy opponents. We fight to win, quickly and permanently. We fight to make sure wars end. Around the system, the remaining Zephyrian ships drifted helplessly as human vessels moved among them like sharks among wounded prey. The humans could have destroyed every enemy ship in minutes, but instead they systematically disabled each one, leaving the crews alive but completely unable to fight. You have a choice, Kim announced to the entire Zephyrian fleet. Surrender. Now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue to resist and every ship in this system will be destroyed. Thex looked around his ruined bridge, then at the tactical display showing his fleet scattered and helpless. In his long military career, he had fought dozens of battles against other galactic civilizations, but those had been proper wars. Ship against ship, formation against formation, with rules and traditions that both sides understood. This was something entirely different. The humans had treated warfare like a problem to be solved rather than a test to be endured. They had used weapons and tactics that the Zephyrians had never imagined, striking with such speed and precision that resistance was impossible. We surrender, Thex said quietly. The words echoed across every Zephyrian ship in the system. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, the mighty Zephyrian Confederation had been completely defeated in a single engagement that lasted less than 3 hours. Kim nodded and closed the channel. Around him, his crew worked efficiently to secure the system and begin rescue operations for the disabled Zephyrian vessels. Signal Earth Command, Kim ordered. Tell them Keth Prime has fallen. Tell them the Zephyrian fleet has surrendered, and tell them we're ready for the next phase. The tide of war had turned completely. The species that had ruled the galaxy through fear and violence had learned what happened when they faced an enemy that viewed warfare not as an art, but as a science. Ambassador Song sat alone in her private office aboard Nexus Station, the massive space station that served as the capital of galactic civilization. In her hands was a data pad containing the most dangerous intelligence report she had ever received. The intercepted communications made her blood run cold. The recording began with the voice of High Chancellor Rax from the Altarian Empire, one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. The human advance through Zephyrian space has been unlike anything we have ever witnessed, Rax said in the secret transmission. They destroyed the entire Keth Prime defense system in 3 hours. 3 hours. Wars are supposed to last decades, not days. Song paused the recording and looked out the viewport at the dozens of alien ships docked at the station. Representatives from hundreds of different species came here to conduct peaceful business, to trade goods and ideas. But now fear was spreading through the galaxy like a disease. She pressed play to continue listening. "The humans are dangerous," came the response from Trade Minister Vel of the Vegan Federation. "If we allow them to complete their campaign against the Zephyrians, they may become too powerful for any of us to control. They must be stopped while they are still focused on their current enemy." Song felt sick as she heard the details of their secret plan. 12 different species were organizing a coalition under the pretense of maintaining galactic stability. They claimed they were acting to prevent humanity from becoming a threat to peace. But Song knew the truth. They were terrified. "We will strike their supply lines while their main fleet is engaged with the Zephyrians," Rax continued. "Make it appear as though we are defending innocent worlds from human aggression. The galaxy will thank us for preventing a human empire from forming." The recording ended, leaving Song staring at the datapad in horror. She immediately sent an encrypted message to Earth Command, knowing that this intelligence could change everything. Within hours, the information had reached General Lee and Admiral Kim. They sat in the war room on Mars, studying tactical displays that showed the positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy. 12 species, General Lee said, his voice filled with disgust. The Altarians, the Vegans, the Centauri Alliance, the Rigel Collective, and 8 others. They're calling themselves the Galactic Protection Force. Admiral Kim examined the fleet positions on the holographic display. They're being clever about it. Instead of massing their forces in one location, they're positioning small task forces near our supply routes and civilian colonies. Colonel Au. Park leaned forward to point at several red markers on the display. "Our deep space reconnaissance teams have confirmed massive fleet movements. They plan to strike simultaneously at 7 different human systems, while our main battle fleet is fighting the Zephyrians." "How long before they're in position?" Lee asked. 2 weeks, maybe less, Park replied. "They're trying to time their attack for when we're most committed to the Zephyrian campaign." Kim stood and walked to the massive viewport that showed the construction yards of Mars. Even now, new warships were being completed every day, their hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. The human war machine had reached levels of efficiency that amazed even its creators. "They're afraid," Kim said simply. "They've watched us defeat the Zephyrians in months instead of years, and now they're terrified of what we might become." "The irony is incredible," Lee added. "They claim they're acting to preserve galactic peace, but their own actions are about to start the largest war in galactic history." Lieutenant Nam approached with another intelligence report. "Sir, we've detected Altarian ships moving toward the Kepler system. The Vegan fleet is approaching New Sydney. It looks like they're targeting our most heavily populated colonies." Kim felt anger building in his chest. The aliens weren't just threatening human military forces. They were positioning themselves to attack civilian populations, just like the Zephyrians had done months earlier. "They think they understand human psychology," Kim said to his assembled staff. "They believe that if they threaten our civilians, we'll negotiate, compromise, maybe even surrender to save innocent lives." He turned back to the tactical display, showing enemy fleet positions. "They have no idea that threatening human civilians is the one thing guaranteed to make us fight harder, not softer. They're about to learn why the Zephyrians made such a terrible mistake." Colonel Choi entered the room with a communication device. "Sir, we're receiving requests for protection from several neutral species, the Tau Cetians, the Wolf System colonies, even some of the minor trade federations. They're afraid they'll be caught in the middle of this conflict." "What are they offering in return?" Lee asked. "Basing rights, supply stations, intelligence sharing. They want to help us, but they're too weak to fight the major powers directly." Kim nodded thoughtfully. This was an unexpected development. The galaxy's smaller civilizations were choosing sides, and they were choosing humanity over the ancient empires that had dominated them for millennia. "Accept their offers," Kim decided, "but make it clear that any species that aids us will be under human protection. If the coalition wants to threaten our allies, they'll have to go through us first. He activated the communication system that would reach every human ship and base in the galaxy. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Kim. We have new intelligence, indicating that multiple alien species are planning to attack human colonies while we're engaged with the Zephyrians. Change of plans, we're not just fighting one war anymore. We're fighting for the future of humanity in this galaxy. The war that had begun with the Zephyrian attack on human colonies was about to become something much larger. 12 alien civilizations had decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. They were about to discover what happened when an entire species was pushed too far. The coalition fleet that gathered at Nexus Station was the most massive military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Ships from 12 different species filled the space around the ancient station, their hulls gleaming with weapons that had been perfected over thousands of years of warfare. Admiral Kess of the Altarian Empire stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, watching the final preparations with satisfaction. 3,000 ships, reported his tactical officer. The largest fleet in recorded history. The humans cannot possibly stand against this force. Kess nodded confidently. The Coalition had spent weeks positioning their forces throughout human space, ready to strike at multiple targets simultaneously. They had the numbers, the experience, and the support of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Victory seemed certain, but Admiral Kim, commanding the human fleet from the bridge of the UES finality, saw something entirely different as he watched the enemy formations through his tactical displays. They're arranging themselves in the old patterns, observed Captain Zhang, shaking her head in amazement. Even now, with everything they've seen us do, they still think this is going to be like their ancient wars. Kim studied the Coalition fleet through his ship's sensors. The alien ships had formed the traditional battle lines that had been used in galactic warfare for millennia. Massive vessels arranged in elegant formations, ready for prolonged combat between opposing forces of equal strength. They still don't understand what human warfare actually means, Kim said quietly. Signal all human ships, execute Protocol 0. What happened next would be remembered as the moment everything changed in galactic history. The human fleet didn't form battle lines or arrange itself for traditional combat. Instead, it scattered into dozens of smaller groups, each one moving toward a specific target with deadly precision. Electronic warfare systems at maximum power, reported Commander Park from the tactical station. All enemy communications are severed. Their command structure is completely blind. Admiral Kess watched in growing horror as his perfectly organized fleet began to fall apart. The Coalition ships, unable to communicate with each other, started firing randomly at targets they couldn't clearly see. Some accidentally attacked their own allies in the confusion. "This is impossible," Kess shouted at his communications officer. "Restore contact with the other ships immediately." But there was no response. Human electronic warfare had created a sphere of silence around the entire Coalition fleet, turning their numerical advantage into a liability as ships collided with each other in the darkness. "Kinetic bombardment platforms in position," announced Lieutenant Nam aboard the Finality. "All enemy command ships targeted and locked." Kim watched the tactical display showing the positions of every Coalition vessel. The aliens had arranged themselves according to military traditions that were older than human civilization. But those traditions assumed that warfare was about honor, glory, and testing strength against worthy opponents. "Fire," Kim ordered. The battle that followed lasted exactly 72 hours, but it wasn't really a battle in any traditional sense. The Coalition forces, trained for formal combat between massive fleets, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to engage according to the rules they understood. Human ships appeared from unexpected directions, struck with devastating precision at the most vulnerable targets, and disappeared before effective counterattacks could be organized. Coalition commanders tried desperately to reform their battle lines, but their ships were being systematically disabled faster than they could adapt. By the end of the first day, most of the Coalition's command vessels were either destroyed or drifting powerless in space. By the end of the second day, their supply ships had been captured and their reinforcements scattered. By the end of the third day, the largest military force in galactic history had been reduced to scattered groups of survivors begging for mercy. Kim opened a communication channel that would reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. Billions of beings across hundreds of species would hear his words. This war began when the Zephyrians murdered 3 million human civilians without warning, Kim said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority. It escalated when 12 species decided that humanity's response made us too dangerous to be allowed to exist. He paused, looking directly into the camera that would broadcast his image across the galaxy. We did not seek this conflict. We did not want to fight a galactic war. But when threatened with extinction, humans respond the only way we know how. We end the threat completely and permanently. The silence that followed his words seemed to stretch across the entire galaxy. Let me be perfectly clear about humanity's position, Kim continued. We are not conquerors. We have no interest in ruling over other species or building an empire. But we will not tolerate threats to human life, and we will not allow anyone to attack human civilians. Admiral Kess, his flagship crippled and his fleet destroyed, listened to the humans' words with growing understanding. The coalition had assumed they were fighting another species like themselves, beings who viewed warfare as a test of strength, or a way to gain territory and resources. Instead, they had encountered something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that treated warfare as simply a problem to be solved with maximum efficiency and minimum delay. Any government that plots against human worlds, any military force that points weapons at human ships, any species that threatens human civilians will discover what total warfare means, Kim concluded. This is the only warning you will receive. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In 72 hours, humanity had demonstrated something that would reshape galactic civilization forever. Wars didn't have to last for decades or centuries. They could be ended quickly, decisively, and permanently. The age of prolonged, honorable warfare was over. Humanity had introduced something new to the galaxy. Conflicts that ended not with negotiated truces or temporary victories, but with absolute and final resolution. They had struck first. Humanity had ended the war forever.